Liv Ullman, a goddess of acting and directing.
There's such a wild, generous openness to the possibility of being alive in Liv that is unboxable, and it cannot be, that flame cannot be put out. And as a person, and then by extension as a director, that's the way she communicates with people. She instills almost by osmosis this feeling of being alive and the complexity of being alive. She goes straight to the soul. She speaks soul to soul.
Silence, everyone. Thank you. Liv, shall we go?
Yes.
Yes. We were talking about, after the success with the Oscar nominations, you thought of writing your first book. What prompted you to write a book and tell your story?
Well, I wrote a lot in newspapers because I had this life in the United States, and publishers saw it and they said, oh, you have to write a book. I wanted to show the life is so full of changing, and I'm part of the changes, and it's my choices that are making the changes, and beware of what kind of choices you make.
If a man had done my career, it would have been fantastic, even if he had a child at home. But me doing it, it's always stressed that, oh, she leaves her child, or it's not good for the child, the mother is working so much. We can never do everything. We can never be perfect mistresses, mothers, women, human beings. Never all that perfect.
I sit in the basement hammering on my typewriter until bad conscience drive me up to the kitchen. I read to Lynn, and I'm polite on the telephone, and I talk to the nanny and tell her she should be free tomorrow because she needs rest. As if I had all the time in the world to have rest. The whole time I'm seething with anger. I doodle on a piece of paper, and my conscience bothers me because I'm a bad mother, because I'm inadequate. Don't answer letters. Don't mend the faucets, but allow them to go on dripping for months on end. Have coffee with a neighbor and make excuses for everything I'm doing because I know that she will never understand why this is important for me. This terrible female guilt. And suddenly, all over the world, I don't know, 25, 26 countries, printed it. And I sat in every bookstore in United States, everywhere, and the lines were enormous. I'd never even thought about it. Never. I became a famous writer. The only place where they didn't come like that was in Trondheim, in Norway, where I am from. And they put me in the window of the bookstore. So I sat in the window, and people passing on the streets, they would see me sitting there to sign books. And nobody came with any books. And then I heard, because I was sitting in the window, and I heard from the desk in the bookstore, a lady did come and buy my book. And then the lady of the bookstore said, well, she's sitting there in the window, you can go with signature. No, I don't want her signature, And at that time, of course, I got sad. But a month after, this is a wonderful story. I always had Norway. You see, always had Norway. They said, oh, you were on the list of one of the worst dressed women in the year. Or, I sit in a car and then there's a parody on the radio. Who always is crying and going on in films and like that. And I knew it was me. I had such an incredible success outside of Norway. But somehow, sometimes in Norway, it's difficult because we have something called the janteloven. You must never believe that you are anyone, and don't think you are anyone, and don't believe you're wiser than us. You know what? I don't want to read it all. It's 10 negative things to you to think about yourself. Has never helped me. And actually, the last one is, you maybe think I don't know something bad about you. Yeah, this is known by everyone in Norway. So be a little careful with your success. They came with a big magazine in Norway for women liberation. For once I was at the front in Norway, but it was this unliberated Liv Ullman. And they made that article because I had also done an ad for Lux soap. That's not what liberates you or unliberates you, that you do ads. Sometimes if you don't have that much money, you do ads as well. And I actually thought it was an honor to do something about this soap. But that was enough to say the unliberated Liv Ullman. And in the United States, I was accepted, you know, this liberated woman, and I did interviews, and I did Nora in the Doll's House, and yeah, I was part of that group. I knew that group.
That is another extraordinary thing about Liv, is that she's been able to have such an enormous international cultural impact in a time where women were just muses or their careers were confined. She's kept moving and changing and evolving, not only as an artist, but as a human being.
To be separated from you, Nora, I just can't conceive of it.
The more reason for it to happen.
I know a woman who walked out a door, Ibsen's store. I know what happened to one Nora after she left. She walked out and continued to let others make her choices. In search of my lost innocence, I walked out a door. At the time, I believed I was looking for a purpose. But I found instead the meaning of choice. Ingmar wrote Fanny and Alexander, you know, the big masterpiece for me. And then when I got it, I said to her, but you said it would be a comedy, and this isn't a comedy. And by the way, I'm going to do a Norwegian film. And for only time in our life, we weren't friends. He wrote to me and called me Miss Ullman and said, you have given up your firstborn rights. It sounds very dramatic, but he did write that. And for almost a year, that happened. And then when Ingmar had one of his first private showings of Fanny and Alexander, I sat at his side and I cried during the whole thing. And because it was a masterpiece, I would have loved to be part of it. But it was also important for me to, okay, I can make my own choices. I was asked to do a script in Denmark and write it on a well-known roman by Nathansen. And I wrote the script, and it wasn't so much only about that book. It was really so many thoughts I'd had, and this love story, and why are we here on earth, and what is love? I went to Denmark and gave them this script and said, well, this is the script. There's a lot of me in it too, but it is Nathansen. And then they phoned and they said, thank you. Would you like to direct this movie? So it came to me. I didn't even know, and they didn't know either, but suddenly they thought, oh yeah, maybe she should direct it. And I called Ingmar, and I said, Ingmar, you know, I was writing this script and they're asking me to direct it. It's a big movie. Ingmar, do you think I can direct? And Ingmar said, yeah, Liv, you can direct. Oh, it came to me, and I was so happy. But then, you see, I have problems. Sometimes I feel I'm a nobody. So the first day of shooting, I came and I went to the cinematographer and I said, oh, I'm going to have some coffee. Shall I go and get you some coffee? And I went to, the script and I said, tell me, you have a lot to do reading your script. And so maybe, do you want some cake? And so, and I will go. And then my wonderful colleague, Erland Josephson, have done so many movies with him, and he's an actor. And he said, stop it. You're a grown-up woman, direct and know what your place is, direct. And so I tried to direct.
I do remember her telling me, it is wonderful, John. Do not wait. It is an entirely new source of joy and creativity. And I can absolutely imagine that to be true. She must be wonderful to work with because she loves actors and she loves acting and she understands the process so much.
Og strømmen lukker sig atter over deres liv.
The main actress was in a big close-up with the camera, and I'm sitting there waiting. And suddenly, she did everything that I had never thought about. That is the moment when I really knew I could be a director. I never had respect for really being an actor because, I go in and feel and it turns out well. But I see an actress and I see her creative and, if that is to be a director, I will be with such a person. From then on, I wanted to be a director. I wanted to be a director. I hoped I would get people asking me.
You've been away a long time.
Yes, I've been writing and directing a movie.
Did it go well? Are you happy with it?
It was the most really professionally fantastic experience.
It was, huh?
Because it's getting close to people and listening to people and bringing out of them the very best.
Yeah, relationships.
Relationships, that's where I have my ideas for you after this.
At the times, my conscience no longer bothered me because of all that I did not do and did not know. I found pleasure in my newfound ability to make my own decisions, even if they were bad. Took delight in my work, in being angry, in weeping, in laughing, in living. Joy in allowing myself to be me. Positive or negative?
How did Kristin Lavransdatter start?
Well, somebody else was going to direct, but something happened with that person and he couldn't do it. And then, not from Norway then, but from the Swedish producer, they said, Liv, Ullman should do it. I wrote the script. I had great happiness with that. I love the story that Sigrid Undset has written. I had Sven Nykvist as the